Welcome back to the class on international business communication. We have been talking about different things. We've talked about what communication means. We've talked about what constitutes communication. We've talked about how we communicate. Let us now, and we've talked about interpersonal communication. We've talked about how relationships are built. We have also discussed organizational communication and the concept of organizations and how communication aids the building of organizations and how it contributes to the functioning of organizations. We started talking about, we've talked about collaboration, people getting together and forming groups and teams, and that's what we started talking about in the previous lecture. So let's continue with that today. Some revision. Please think about the differences between groups and teams. Categorize different kinds of groups based on different parameters. We've talked about some of the groups. Discuss the advantages and disadvantages of homogenized, institutional, autocratic and intentional groups. I showed you this paper by Alcorn in this book by Cathcart, Samovar and Henman, and that talks about how groups are organized, and I told you the differences. So it will be nice if you can talk about, based on what I have told you, please discuss the differences between these four kinds of groups, and I had also asked you to think about how membership in these groups may be affected. I will take you to what we discussed yesterday. We have a lot to cover today, but we will really go fast. I definitely want to show you this part. We talked about cultures of workplace groups. So this is what we discussed yesterday. So I would like you to read this before we move on to the next slide. Okay, technology sometimes behaves strangely. We talked about culture. Now, based on what I told you about the culture of various types of groups, the membership experience in workplace groups varies. And how is this connected to communication? Let's first discuss how membership experience varies, and then we will talk about how it contributes to the communication within the group, how it might contribute to communication within the team, and how it might influence the communication climate of the organization as a whole, which in turn impacts the efficiency of the organization. The first group we will talk, the first thing here is the consequences of speaking out and taking action. In a homogenized group, because everybody is on the same platform, everybody has an equal sense of membership and no leader is designated or encouraged, members fear the consequences of speaking out and taking action. In an institutionalized group, members fear the consequences of speaking out in other than the prescribed manner or taking action without prior approval. What does this remind you of? Probably a regular government organization. There are reasons for these procedures, and in a very vertical, very hierarchical, very bureaucratic organization, we would feel scared about speaking out out of turn. We would feel scared about taking action without prior approval, or whenever we are asked for our approval, what do we say? As per rules. Recommended as per rules, permitted as per rules. So everything, the rules take precedence over everything. The rules govern everything. The next one here is autocratic. Members fear the consequences of speaking out or taking action without the explicit approval of the leader. We don't care what happens, whatever the rules prescribe, but as long as the leader allows us, we can do anything, and if the leader says no, whether the rules allow it or not, we are bound to follow the leader. Intentional is when members are eager to offer their point of view. So, when groups get together, people are very eager to share what they know, what they are doing with each other. Now as far as the feeling of autonomy is concerned, in a homogenized group, people feel helpless because they are attacked when they speak. When they say something, people are attacked by everybody else for going out of the norms of the group. In an institutionalized group, members feel helpless because they are attacked when they deviate, when they don't follow the norms. Autocratic group, members feel helpless because of the leader's inflexible attitude. Leader doesn't permit you to talk, leader punishes you when you talk out of turn. In an intentional group, members feel safe because everyone is on an equal footing when they speak out. In a homogenized group, security is in being unnoticed. You stay invisible, you're part of the group, you go to group meetings, you don't do very much, and you feel safe. In an institutionalized group, safety isn't following the rules. In an autocratic kind of group, the members feel unsafe and insecure generally because of the leader's unpredictability. Unless you are part of the leaders in group, you feel that you don't know when you will be attacked, you don't know when the leader may go against you, you don't know how the leader will behave. So, one feels very unsafe and insecure. In an intentional type of group, the safety and security depend on the equality. Because of the sense of equality among the group members, people assume roles, people assume whatever they do, people assume functions, so everybody feels safe and secure. In a homogenized group, as far as the sense of purpose is concerned, in a homogenized group, members feel that the group has lost its purpose. Members feel that the group is completely directionless. In an institutionalized group, members feel that they have lost their own purpose in trying to follow the rules. When I am in an institution, I go there, I join an institution with some ideas, with a vision for my own personal development. I mean, how many of us do things selflessly? Let's be honest, not many. Very rare, very few people are able to do things completely selflessly. Most of us have our own interests in addition to the interests of the organization or the interests of the general public or the interest of the community at heart. We do have that, but we also have our own personal interests. If nothing else, the salary. We join, we start working in an organization because we need money and resources to live a life. I mean, comfortably comes later, but in order to sustain, in order to live, we need money, and to earn that money, we join an organization, we work. Some things about the work we like, some things about the work we don't like, and we form a team and we excuse me, we do things. So, if the group is institutionalized, very rule governed, many times the members may feel that they have lost their own sense of purpose because they are just trying to follow the rules very, very rigidly. And this happens mostly in vertical organizations. In an autocratic organization, the individuals feel a loss of personal purpose to the boss's whims. Now, this is a very, very difficult situation. Institution is on one side, the boss is on the other side. I will just draw this out for you. So, we have the institution here, we have the boss here, and the measly me is here, and I am going to do this in a very, very small circle. This is you, and here the boss is much bigger than the institution, which is slightly smaller. The word is bigger. So, you can see that the volume, the level of importance given to the boss is much higher in an autocratic institution, and everything is governed by the boss, or the boss's whims and fancies, and one feels that one's purpose is lost completely because of the boss's whims. Members feel in an intentional group, the members feel a continued sense of purpose. I wish I had drawn a diagram, maybe I will provide it in the reference material. I just had this idea that I could compare these 4 types of groups diagrammatically. So, I will try and do that in the reference and supporting material. We do not have time to do that here in another lecture. Okay. The last another aspect of membership experience is frustration. In a homogenized group, people feel frustrated because the group has no direction, they've lost their sense of purpose, so they feel frustrated, they feel uncomfortable continuing to be a part of that group. In an institutionalized group, the frustrations occur because of rigid institutional processes. You can't stray too much away from the rules, you can't go very far away from the rules, you have to stick to the rules and do everything as per rules whether they make sense to you or not. So members feel frustrated. In an autocratic kind of an group, members feel frustrated because of the inflexibility of the leader. The leader is very rigid. In the institutionalized group, at least there are other people who are facing the same frustrations as you. It's just, the institution is rigid, it's rigid for everybody, it's rigid for the leaders, it's rigid for you, so it's not really hierarchical. And it is, one feels that it is easier to follow a system rather than a person. But in an autocratic system or an autocratic group, you have to follow a person, and you feel, what is the difference between him and me or her and me? Where do we draw the line? So it becomes much more frustrating in an autocratic system because we feel frustrated because of the inflexibility of the leader. Okay, in the intentional group, the frustrations are openly discussed and solved. We may feel frustrated with certain things, but we can discuss our frustrations and we resolve our frustrations, and we discuss things with each other, and that's what we do. Okay. So those were the membership experiences that I wanted to share with you, and let's go back to the previous slide. Those were the things that I wanted to share with you as far as these 4 types of groups were concerned, and the feeling one gets from being in these 4 types of groups. This in turn will influence how we feel about the institute or the team as a whole. Groups are smaller, groups are more flexible, but even in groups we could face these problems. When applied to teams, these may translate into similar kinds of issues in teams. When we take the teams, we don't, and this can lead to frustrations and anxieties and inefficiencies depending on which kind of institution we are in, which kind of team we are a part of, and that can in turn influence the productivity of the team, that can in turn influence the productivity of the organization as a whole. And so many things contribute: motivation, commitment, loyalty. All of these things are influenced by the feelings, how you feel about your membership in the group and how that is communicated to you. It all rests on communication. How do you know that an organization is autocratic? The boss is always calling you to his office and saying, you must do this and you must not do this. And whenever you meet the boss is always sort of looking here and there, has a disconfirming attitude. You wish the boss doesn't reply, and one feels really uncomfortable in such a situation. You feel you don't belong, you don't know where you stand. On the other hand, in an institutionalized organization, everybody is walking around with a rule book. So in an institutionalized group, everybody is following the rules. If you know the rules by heart, you stand to gain, or if you know the rules, if you know how the rules are interpreted, you stand to gain much more than the others. On the other hand, in a homogenized group is purposeless. Teams are usually not formed out of homogenized groups. The communication that goes is, as long as you fall in line, everything is okay. But the minute you fall out of line, you will be slammed. So that can have a bearing. See how all these things are connected. Our behaviors, our communication, everything is connected. In an intentional group, on the other hand, people get together and they work things out together. Now, when we apply this to real life situations, real life organizations, I can't think of a homogenized group that would really be functioning as an organization. Institutionalized group, governments of any country, very strict rules and procedures. Any public organizations would be an institutionalized group. pretty much, these are the extremes. Of course, most organizations are a mix of these three. Autocratic, since they are person centered, in every team, you may find some people who are very autocratic. Once in a while you may get a leader who's autocratic. Intentional groups, one example of intentional groups is the social service organizations, non-government, non-profit organizations that come up as and when there is a need for work. So everybody is committed, so committed towards the goal that your ultimate purpose is making the lives of disabled children comfortable. Your ultimate goal is to help the survivors from an earthquake. Your ultimate goal is to build homes for the slum children. So all of those things sort of, you don't care who's being the leader, who's managing the money, as long as you know who's doing what. If you are really involved in the purpose, it doesn't matter who's up here and who's down below. Usually people are at the same level depending on their convenience. They assume different roles depending on their abilities. They assume different roles, and that is pretty much the end of it. So that is how these four groups are different. Okay, an effective group is one that achieves high levels of task performance, member satisfaction and team viability. Now this has been taken from a book on organizational behavior, and you will say, how are these related? Well, organizational behavior, organizational communication are two sides of the same coin. It's the exact same thing. Communication is what you say, how you say it. Behavior is the non-verbal aspects. So, and you will say, what about non-verbal communication? Behavior is a little more overarching than communication. Communication is the tool for your expression for whatever is going on, whatever you know. When groups are effective, they help organizations accomplish important tasks. In particular, they offer the potential for synergy, which is the creation of a whole that is greater than the sum of its parts. I thought I would really share this with you because, no organization can function without synergy, without a smooth blending between its various functions. Okay, we were talking about social facilitation yesterday. Social facilitation is an important part of group behavior. If you are feeling comfortable in a group, if you are feeling happy in a group, the tendency, social facilitation is a general term that means the tendency for one's behavior to be influenced by the presence of others in a group or social setting in general. But when you're really, I brought this here because when in the context of effective groups, when you're feeling committed to the group, when you're feeling happy about your membership experience in the group, at that point the tendency to do positive things increases because everybody else around you is doing good things. So it's a mixture of intrapersonal and interpersonal communication. You're constantly getting the message from within is, okay, I am motivated enough, but is my motivation being noticed? So, yes, I decide what impact external things have on me, but if they are having a positive impact on me, if they are making me feel good, why not? Why should I always disconfirm what is coming towards me? Why should I not blend in and let positive things come to me? They will help me also. So that is social facilitation. It is it is the tendency to be influenced by presence of others in a group or social setting. So if the others around me are doing positive things and I feel motivated and their goal is to motivate me in addition to doing their own work, why not? Why should I not fall in line? That sort of helps build groups and helps groups become effective. Okay, group structure, the stages of group development. Now different people have given different stages. One set of stages was given, has been discussed by Lewis in the book on organizational communication. According to Lewis, the first stage is testing and dependence, discovery of interpersonal behaviors that are acceptable to the group. So right in the beginning we establish norms, we test waters, we figure out how dependent we will be on people, how dependent we will be on the environment and on whom, and how dependent they are on us. Depending on that, we decide whether to move on to the next stage or not. So, this is just testing the waters, trying to get our feet wet and figuring out whether we want to even be a part of this group or not. Stage 2 is the intra-group conflict. We have discovered this, okay. We have discovered where that we want to be a part of this group. Now comes the fitting stage. So, this is where, you know, when you try out any new say part of your body, especially with your tooth implants. Many of us get bridges in our teeth, or many of us, all of us get clothes stitched, at least in this part of the world. So, we go to the tailor, and if it's a new tailor, usually you will have a fitting session. So, they'll ask you to try the clothes on, and then they will say, okay, I'm going to, you know, tighten your clothes from this side and loosen them from the other side, and you know, this is longer, this is shorter. So, they give you a vague idea. If it's a good tailor, the tailor will call you for a fitting session. Similarly, we have a fitting stage in group formation, where the hostility of members, as it shouldn't be as the achieve, it should be as they achieve balance between expressing individuality and fitting in the group. This is what this stage is all about. People try to achieve balance, people try to fit into the group, they figure out where there are differences, they figure out, they may express some of their differences, and then get, depending on the feedback, they either adapt or they encourage others to adapt to them. So, this is what the stage is all about. Some conflict occurs here. In the third stage, there is development of group cohesion. We have worked out our differences, we have fit in, we have decided where we can fit in, where we can sort of chip away our corners, and where others can chip away their corners, and so we sort of fit into the organization. Then comes the bonding, the acceptance of each other. And the fourth stage is functional role relatedness, which is the task and role assignment and expression leading to solutions. So, at this stage what happens is that you know how you fit in, you know what your contribution will be, you know where you stand in relation to the rest of the group. So, we are at that point, tasks may be assigned or assumed by the group members, and there is an expression of the solutions, there is an expression of our work. You are assigned a task, you finish that task, you tell the group what you have done, that is what expression means, and then you bring whatever everybody has done together to the table, combine it, blend it, and then come up with a solution to the problem at hand. So, that is the those are the stages of group development discussed by Lewis. Let us move on to another formula or another diagram on group development. This is discussed in this book in Organizational Behavior by Schermerhorn, Hunt and Osborne. They say that a group has groups are developed in 5 stages. Forming is getting to know each other, storming is dealing with tensions and defining group tasks, norming is building relationships and working together, performing is maturing in relationships and task performance, and adjourning is disbanding and celebrating accomplishments. And this is how the cycle continues. We form, we get to know each other, we deal with tensions and define group tasks, we build relationships, we work together, we form a set of rules, we work together, then we mature in our relationships and performance, we become better at what we do. And when that task and that purpose is accomplished, maybe one task, maybe a set of tasks, when all that is accomplished and the reasons for us remaining together slowly sort of dying out, we celebrate our accomplishments, we get together, we have a send-off ceremony, people start leaving the group, and we get together and we sort of, there's feedback, both positive and negative, and some may feel comfortable, some may feel uncomfortable. So, you adjourn the group. Depending on what you learn from the previous experience, you get back into forming a new group, and the cycle continues. Factors influencing group effectiveness. The first one is diversity consensus dilemma. This is the tendency for the existence of diversity among group members to make it harder for them to work together, even though the diversity itself expands the skills and perspectives available for problem solving. Now, what does this mean? This means that diversity consensus dilemma is the confusion we have in our minds. It is nice to come from diverse backgrounds, and this is something that really applies to global teams. The basic premise behind this course, international teams. It's nice to bring different skills, different backgrounds to the table, but the problem comes in when we have different experts coming together. We can't find common ground. The lack of common ground makes it difficult, even though there's richness on these different sides. Let me just explain it diagrammatically. I think that will be easier. So, we have somebody here, okay, and we have somebody here, and we have somebody here, and we have somebody here, and they are all coming from different directions. They have their own sort of ideas here. This person has his own, I'm sorry, I should have used blue here. I don't know what I've done with the blue pen. Yeah, okay. So, this is, say, maybe blue over here, and you have green, you have this person's experience here. This is probably a mixture of blue and green, and so you know, you have your own experiences, diversity of experiences. There's some common ground, but for the most part we are very, very different over here. Now, the problem comes in when we try to make connections between here and here, here and here. We are trying to find common ground, and this is the most difficult part, okay. And the same thing over here. So, these connections become more difficult when we are too far removed from each other, and this is the problem that diversity brings. Okay. Status congruence is another problem that influences group effectiveness. It occurs when a person's position within the group is equivalent in status to positions the individual holds outside the group. So, what happens is that depending on where you stand in the group, you are the head of department here, and you are the head of the family outside, or you are the head of department in one organization and you may be a student in another part of the same organization. This is something that happens very much in academics. I think I've told you this before. I have a colleague who was my student in one class. He is doing his PhD here, and he was senior to me when we went back to the department. So, luckily we are all pretty, you know, we know how this works, and you know, you come prepared to face such situations, but many times people may not feel very comfortable in these two very opposite roles. When he came back to the department, I would address him as sir. When he was in class, he would address me as ma'am. He is older, he is much more experienced. So, you know, all these things, I mean, this is the conflict that occurs sometimes. This can become difficult, especially with people we are uncomfortable with or we have some differences with. Okay. The next one here is the Firo-B theory. We have discussed the Firo theory. Firo-B is a more developed version of the theory. You will do this more in your course on organizational behavior. Groups whose members have compatible needs are likely to be more effective than groups whose members are more incompatible as far as their needs are concerned. Again, we talked about goals being a very important factor in determining the banding or the cohesion in groups. Now, the problem comes up when these goals are mismatched. The further removed the goals of people are from each other, the further removed the reasons for them coming together are, the more difficult it becomes for the group to function effectively. Group size, again, as the group becomes larger, more and more people are available to divide up the work and accomplish needed tasks, but it also puts pressure on the group. It increases the diversity, it creates problems with status congruence, the needs are different. So, it's not only the numbers, yes, labor is divided, but it's also the quality of interaction they bring to the table. And so, more number of people, more ideas, more very different needs, very different goals for being in the group, and that can create problems. Group dynamics, activities, interactions and sentiments, we have discussed this, so I am not going to go more into it. Okay. Group conformity. Now, we've discussed why groups, sort of how groups come together, but when groups come together, we also talked about something called as stress in the last class. What is stress? Stress is the pressure we place on each other, the tension we feel when we are together. And how do we do any kind of work? We feel motivated. And what do you mean by motivation? There is somebody pushing you, there's some pressure, there's something that is propelling you in the direction. It could be positive, it could be negative, but there is something pushing you in the direction of where you should be going or where you need to go, and that push is what we are going to talk about here. So, why do groups push each other to sort of stay connected, or why do groups exert pressure on the members? One of the theories that has been given is the one by Festinger in 1950, discussed in this book by Cathcart, Samovar and Henman, published in 1996. This is the group locomotion hypothesis. According to this hypothesis, groups have goals and typically attempt to function in ways designed to allow them to achieve these goals. So, group purpose takes precedence over the individual purposes. Now, going back to the different types of groups that we were talking about, the institutionalized group would fall under this category. The what was the other one? I'm sorry. It was the intentional group would also fall under this category. So, in both of these categories, the purpose of the group is more important than the individual purposes of the group members, and that is what forces the members to function in one direction. Now, this does not apply to autocratic groups. In autocratic groups, the purpose of the leader is the most important. What does the leader want, irrespective of what the organization wants, irrespective of what the other members want. Social comparison theory. Most people do not need to consult the views of others to validate their perceptions of physical reality, but social perceptions are socially constructed. Now, again, social comparison. You must have seen this in your own families. Some of you may even be doing this with your family members. When we are growing up, our parents compare us to our classmates, to our siblings, in order to motivate us to perform better. Again, it's the perceptions. How do I perceive myself in relation to others? How do others perceive me? What do I perceive about their perceptions? We talked about meta perspectives, so that is what applies here. It's all about perspectives, different perspectives and different perceptions within the group. Where do I think I stand? Where do others think I stand? And how will that push me in conforming to the group? Do I want to fit in? Do I want to be one of the group, or do I want to be outside of the group? So, that is the social comparison theory, again proposed by Festinger in 1954, discussed by Cathcart, Samovar and Henman in 1996 in this book published in 1996. Balance theories are, sometimes people may conform just because they do not want to disturb the status quo. What difference does it make to me? You know, the groups exert pressure on the members, and the members yield to the pressure. They say, yes, something is coming, big deal, you know, it does not affect me either way. So, that pressure is exerted on the group to stay the way it is, or to move in one direction. So, that is what balance theories are. Now, the previous slide focused on why groups exert pressure on the members. Now, yes, the group is exerting pressure on me, but why should I yield? Why should I succumb to that pressure? And these theories explain that. The first one again is group locomotion hypothesis, fulfillment of individual goals through organizational goals. Same person, two sides of the same coin. I feel that if the institution is progressing, if my organization is making money, even I'll make money, even I'll progress, even I'll get a better reputation if my organization is earning a better reputation by working together. So why not? Why should I not join the bandwagon and do what others are doing? Because it's going to bring positive rewards to me that I would not have otherwise been able to attain or receive on my own. Because here there's a pool of resources. I have also put my resources in the same pool, but others are also drawing. So we are all sort of drawing from this big pool of resources, and we are all enjoying the benefits of collectivity. The next one is balance theories. Maintenance of personal equilibrium through organizational balance. Again, this is about, we feel that if the organization is in harmony, I will also be in harmony. The other side of the coin is the organization feels that if the members are in harmony, then the organization will be harmonious. I'm sorry, I'm sucking on a lozenge. I have a bad throat and I don't want to cough in the middle of the lecture. So please pardon this occasional sound. Anyway, so we maintain personal equilibrium through organizational balance. Social exchange view is the symbiotic relationship with the organization, wherein what happens is that I draw from the organization and that entitles the organization to draw from me. So that is symbiosis. We live off of each other, we both help each other, and that is the symbolic, the social exchange view that was proposed by Homans 1958, discussed in the book by Cathcart, Samovar and Henman in 1996. Social judgment theory is another one. Again, it doesn't affect me either way, might as well go along with it. Proposed by Sharif and Nebergall in 1965. Snyder, again, more work was done by Snyder in 1974 and Snyder and Monson in 1975, and all these implications are discussed in the book by Cathcart, Samovar and Henman, published in 1996. And the whole crux of this theory is that since everything is going in one direction, it doesn't affect me, it's not going to disturb me, I will be neutral, so big deal, why should I not go along with it? That's the social judgment theory, and that's why I may yield to group pressure. Lewis again gave some more things that are mentioned in this book by Lewis are, one is deviance discomfort. Again, I feel uncomfortable about being labeled as a not belonging to the group, being labeled as not falling in line, being of deviating from the group, so I yield to group pressure for the fear of being noticed. Again, this may apply to the homogenized group. Enforcement. If I don't do what I'm expected to do, if I don't fall in line with the group's norms, there'll be somebody who will pull me back into the group, or I'll be punished for not doing things. And this applies to which types of groups? Discuss amongst yourselves, please. Please pause this, and the answer is that it applies to the institutionalized and autocratic type of groups. In one case, the organization will punish me, in the other case, the boss will punish me. So if I don't follow the rules, if I don't conform to this pressure being put on me by the group. Internalization is another one. I have become a part of the group, I have learned to follow the rules of the group, so I just sort of go in the same vein, and it's just part of my system. I am part of the group is part of me, so we are sort of the same system and we sort of move along. Okay. Relational communication in groups. Some assumptions we make. Formation of social relationships in groups is inevitable. It's more in personal than in professional groups. The second one here is relationships enhance engagement within and commitment to the group, and that is why we form relationships within the group. Relationships serve as sources of support, that's why we connect with each other, that's why we bond with each other, and this relates to the notion of cohesiveness that we've been talking about. Relationships serve as practice grounds for various functional roles within and outside a group. We test the waters, do what we are expected to do and come back. Relationships serve as a support system that facilitates experimentation of new ideas in-house. One is the experimentation of roles, the other is experimentation of what we can do. we sort of practice within the group and we move out and do it on our own. So it's a network. That is why we sort of come into a group, and that is how the group helps us. Now we come to dysfunctional groups. We've been talking about effective groups all this while, but we have groups that become dysfunctional, and some examples of dysfunctional behavior are inconsistent behavior, which is things that are not really in line with whatever is going on. So people flying off the handle, people being unpredictable. We could also have extremes of inconsistent behavior. We have the primary provokers, which is people who engage in this inconsistent behavior, extremely inconsistent behavior, and we have the secondary provokers, which are people who support the primary provokers in being dysfunctional and encouraging dysfunctional behavior. Okay, what is the impact of dysfunctional relationships on group dynamics and performance? What happens is, when the groups become dysfunctional, or when you have a few dysfunctional relationships within a group, the performance of the group and the dynamics of the group are compromised. It compromises the decision making procedures to avoid conflict. So what happens is that if there are people who are flying off the handle, who are not falling in line, who are not doing things as expected, who are not following the norms, who are really creating it, making it very uncomfortable for the rest of the group members, the procedures that are set in place by the group become plagued by such dysfunctionalism, and they are compromised and they don't happen as they are supposed to happen, which in turn influences the goal, the achievement of the goal, and the effectiveness of the group. Defining issues according to the poor relationship or weak member. So what happens is that another impact these dysfunctional relationships have is, when they become too dysfunctional, they start putting a pressure on the group. So we start defining issues in terms of dysfunctional people. Okay, we have to achieve this goal, but what about this particular person who's always trying to create problems for us? We have to figure out measures, we have to put measures in place to to avoid or to counteract the problems this person may bring up. Or you start becoming defensive. So we say, okay, it's not about achieving the goal, it's about protecting myself from the problems that these dysfunctional people may create, and that becomes the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is not the goal that you've originally wanted to achieve. The ultimate goal becomes the saving of yourself from these problems that these dysfunctional people may create, and that is not a good goal to have for any team or group. Okay, we consume a great deal of energy trying to resolve issues relative to the primary provoker, and again this is related, not going to go into it. Exhibiting confusing behaviors in response to this conflict. Again, we waste too much time, too much energy. We may exhibit conflicting behaviors. On the one hand, we want to support a person who needs it. On the other hand, we want to sort of counteract the problems also. So we want to stop the behavior, we want to regulate the behavior, so that can become problematic. Being consumed with mending the relationships. We want that person to be a part of the group, we want that person to feel like a part of the system. So we sort of we start mending relationships, and we say that if this person's behavior can be converted from dysfunctional to functional, or at least neutral, the rest of the problems will be resolved, and that puts the achievement of the goal on a back burner. Displaying negative emotions towards the group as a whole. So dysfunctional people, some of us who are not really comfortable with addressing this dysfunctional behavior start labeling the whole group as dysfunctional because of this one member, and that can create problems in the performance of the group, and that can sort of start a chain reaction and cause some concern for the cohesion of the group. Another problem with groups is social loafing, or what is called as the Ringelmann effect. complicated name for a very simple problem. This is the tendency of people to work less hard in a group than they would individually. We see this quite a bit, unfortunately. I'm sure this is across the board. Whenever we form groups and teams of students, there are some people who are the freeloaders, as we call them. It's unfortunate. It happens in teams, it happens in professional teams, it happens when students get together and do team or group projects, and we have some people who are the real workers, and there are some people who are just the freeloaders, and that is what is called social loafing. The reasons for this are their individual contributions are less noticeable in a group, so they may be given some work or they may be assigned some responsibility that's not really important. They feel less motivated, or they are just lazy. They prefer to see others carry their workload also, which is not a good thing to do. How do you deal with social loafing? You define roles and tasks to maximize individual interests. You define things, you tell people what you're expected, what they are expected to do. Raise accountability by making performance expectations clear and identifiable, and tie individual rewards to their performance and contributions to the group, and this can be taken care of. Okay, what are teams? A team, as we discussed yesterday, is a special part, it's a special form of group characterized by close-knit relationships among people with different and complementary abilities, and by a strong sense of identity. I feel I belong to the team, and the sense of identity is stronger because you are getting together to achieve a common goal. Differences between groups and teams, I asked you to think about them, but again, these differences could be because they could come up because of diversity of abilities and skills. I am not going to give you patchwork. I am not going to give you clear answers for anything. I like to encourage my students to find their own answers. I give you the tips, I give you the leads, and you go and discover these answers for yourself. So, I am giving you a lead here. I asked you a question, I am giving you a lead right here. There are differences between groups and teams, and these differences can come up and be caused by the diversity of abilities and skills among the different team members, and that can impact how they are together, and so you have to discuss that amongst yourselves. Interdependence is another source of difference, not the difference but source of difference. Group identity is another source of difference. Now you figure it out. I'm sure if you've heard what I've taught you, if you have read a little bit extra, looked at the references that have been provided with the course, I'm sure you'll be able to find the answer on your own. Some types of teams based on what teams do. We have teams that recommend things, we have teams that run things, that manage things. You could have homogeneous and cross-functional teams. Again, I'll tell you the difference between the two. Homogeneous teams are where everybody is doing the exact same thing and they are doing parts of the same thing. So, it's more the distribution is more around the quantity of work rather than the different aspects of the work. And we have cross-functional teams where you have a team that has different where you can divide it into different parts. For example, now we've been talking about professional examples. Let's take an example of what happens in the house. Homemaking, you go into the kitchen, you have a big party. I've seen this in our community functions, weddings and other kinds of ceremonies, and on one day you'll see all these aunties sitting together and peeling boiled potatoes. Why? Because you're going to cook like 50 kilos of potatoes for the party in the evening. So everybody takes one big bowl of potatoes and starts peeling it, and then they gossip and all. So that is homogeneous team where everybody is doing the exact same thing, they've just divided up their work. Cross-functional team would be cooking those potatoes or making a dish out of those potatoes or of the vegetables. So, one person is peeling the potatoes, the other one is cutting up those potatoes, the third one is getting the spices ready, the fourth one is sort of has the main duty of cooking the potatoes. So, the fourth person is putting the oil in the big wok or pan and then when everything comes as expected, they are just trying it. So that is what this is. They are cross-functional teams. I'm sure you can apply the same thing to your professional lives as well, but we need to have some variety in our examples, hence this one. Teams that make or do things, teams that manufacture, teams that create things, teams that fix and maintain things is another one. In this we have employee involvement teams, where employees get together and they contribute to the they get together and they talk about each other's wellness, and they talk about relationships, and they maintain the ongoing processes. Quality circles are special teams where you get together and discuss about the quality and the productivity of an organization and ensure that this is happening. So you exclusively monitor the quality of an organization. Self-managing teams are teams that have different functions that have been distribute different functions amongst the team members, and they all sort of take care of one aspect of the maintenance portion of any team, and they sort of keep contributing. So that is the self-managing team. Okay, based on how much they do, we have project teams which are task based. They look at one aspect of a procedure. We have work teams which look at the entire work process. Based on location, we have real-time teams, which is as if this were a real classroom and I was teaching my students here. This would have been a real team. What is happening right now is a virtual team. This is an example of a virtual team. So it's all remotely. I don't know, I may end up hearing this lecture 20 years down the line when all my hair is white, and so or after I'm dead, maybe 50 years down the line, if YouTube is still alive and if it hasn't evolved into something much fancier, and if the records of these things are kept, maybe somebody will see it 100 years down the line and say, how different things were. So that is the example for virtual team. Maybe somebody will use a part of these things if they are useful towards building something different. So that is the virtual teams, and of course the concept of virtual teams is so vast that it would require a series of lectures on its own. I mean, I'm just giving you these tips, so just take these tips and explore on your own. That is what I would like you to do, and that's why I'm giving you so much of information. Okay, nature of teamwork. What happens in teams? We have collective accountability. And every member is assumed to be willing to listen and respond constructively to views expressed by others and give others the benefit of doubt, provide support and recognize the interests and achievements of others. We work together. We work together to build a team. We work together for the benefit of the team, and we support each other. We do things that mean more to others than to us. Team building is a collaborative way to gather and analyze data to improve teamwork. It is a sequence of planned activities designed to gather and analyze data on the functioning of a group and to initiate changes designed to improve teamwork and increase group effectiveness. And all of this is done by encouraging a supportive climate within the organization and communicating these goals to the rest of the team, communicating positiveness, communicating intentionality, communicating motivation within the group. And this is how teams are built. This is how teams are brought together, and the members are encouraged to be committed members within the team, and the membership experience is enhanced. How team building works. Again, a model in the book on organizational behavior. We have team member, which is participation by all members. So step one is we identify a problem or opportunity in team effectiveness. We gather data about what can make the team more effective. We analyze the data. We plan for team improvements. We act on those planned improvements, and we evaluate the results of what we've done, and we go back and we recognize another opportunity for team effectiveness, and all this is done with everybody sitting together. Okay, some norms of team behavior. Norms of a group or team represent ideas or beliefs about how members are expected to behave. They are recurring patterns of behavior based on implicit and explicit rules that develop and change as the group interacts, and these are the things that we want to do, we are expected to do when we are a part of the group. They are the standards of conduct. Why do we have norms? We have norms because we want people to know what we expect of them. We have norms because we want to help people structure their own behavior and predict what others will do. We have norms because we want to help members gain a common sense of direction, and we have norms because we want to reinforce a desired group or team culture. We will go into the types of norms tomorrow. I have been informed that the time is running out, so we will need to stop here, and still I would like you to discuss a few things amongst yourselves. Discuss the coordination of communication rules at different stages of group and team building. Do these communication rules change with a change in the stage at which you are at? Do they, if yes, do they change? If yes, why? If no, why not? I would also like you to find out what functional silos are. I have not covered it here, but I would like you to find out what functional silos are and how they affect the communication within a team. So Google it or find out from a some website what functional silos mean. Have you seen them? And how would the communication change in this case, in this specific context of functional silos? What would the communication be like? And I would also like you to discuss the advantages and disadvantages of the virtual nature of such means virtual groups and teams, on the communication in virtual groups and teams. And once you've done that, then we can move on to the next part of this issue in the next class. Thank you.